Pathetic aliens pissed their pants at the sight of Krell weapons, but humans just laughed and started shooting back. Sergeant Kevin Cooper slammed down his empty glass, the dim lights of the remote space station bar barely illuminating his grizzled, battle-scarred face. His tired eyes stared into nothingness as his mind wandered back to humanity's darkest days. "Excuse me, sir?" A timid voice interrupted his brooding. Kevin glanced up to see a young Pandronian, Horus, standing nervously before him, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. "Is it true, what they say about humans and the Krell invasion?" Kevin let out a mirthless chuckle. "Depends on what you've heard, kid." Horus sat down, his hands fidgeting. "They say humans were the only ones who didn't surrender when the Krell attacked, that you fought back even though their weapons were so advanced." "Damn right we fought back," Kevin growled, his voice low and rough. "But not because we were brave or stupid. We fought because we had to, because if we didn't, humanity would be wiped out or enslaved like all the other races the Krell crushed." Kevin's eyes took on a haunted look as he began to recount the tale of the Krell invasion. The ruthless aliens had swept through the galaxy like a plague, their terrifying weapons vaporizing entire cities and armies in seconds. Most species surrendered immediately, hoping for mercy. But the humans refused to go quietly into the night. They knew the Krell would show no mercy, that surrendering meant death or worse. So they rallied together, pooled their resources and ingenuity, and prepared for the fight of their lives. The odds were stacked against them, but they had no choice. It was fight or die, and humans always chose to fight. Kevin paused, taking a deep breath. The memories were painful, but he knew the story needed to be told. He looked at Horus, who was hanging on his every word. "When the Krell reached Earth, they sent a message," Kevin continued, his voice low and steady. "Surrender or be destroyed." They demonstrated their power by vaporizing our moon, turning it to dust in an instant. Horus gasped, his eyes wide with horror. "They destroyed your moon." Kevin nodded grimly. "But instead of surrendering, we fought back. Our leaders, in a desperate gamble, launched every nuclear weapon we had at the Krell ships. It was like throwing rocks at a tank, but it bought us time." He described how the humans used that precious time to analyze the Krell's technology, reverse engineering what they could from the wreckage of destroyed ships. "We couldn't match their weapons, but we found weaknesses. Their shields couldn't handle the heat of re-entry, and their sensors couldn't penetrate our atmosphere at low altitudes." Kevin's voice took on a note of pride as he recounted how human pilots using jury-rigged ships and salvaged alien tech launched daring raids on the Krell ships, using Earth's gravity well and atmosphere to their advantage. "We'd skim the upper atmosphere, using the heat to mask our approach. Then we'd pop up at the last second, fire everything we had, and dive back down before they could lock on." His eyes grew distant, remembering the bravery of those pilots. "We lost a lot of good men and women, but we took down dozens of their ships. It was a war of attrition, and we were buying time with blood." Horus was silent, trying to process the scale of the conflict. Kevin's hands. Kevin paused, his voice hoarse from the tale. He took a long swig from his glass, the amber liquid burning his throat. Horus waited patiently, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and horror. After a moment, Kevin continued, "But the tide turned when we captured a Krell alive." His eyes took on a distant look as he recalled the memory. "A special ops team, led by my old friend Captain Jack Hudson, managed to board a damaged Krell ship. They fought their way through the corridors, taking heavy fire but pushing forward. In the end, they subdued one of the aliens and brought it back to Earth." Kevin described the scene as the captured Krell was dragged into a secure facility, its limbs bound, and its eyes darting with a mix of fear and rage. "Our scientists and interrogators went to work on it immediately. They used every trick in the book, from advanced neuroscience to old-fashioned manipulation." He shook his head, remembering the long days and nights of the interrogation. "It took weeks of grueling effort, but we finally broke through the Krell's mental conditioning. We got it to talk, and what it told us changed everything." Leaning forward, Kevin's voice dropped to a whisper. The captured Krell revealed a critical weakness in their hive mind network, a vulnerability that could be exploited to sow chaos and confusion among their ranks. He sat back, a grim smile on his face. Turns out the Krell's greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. They were so dependent on their collective consciousness that disrupting it could cripple them. Kevin recounted how Earth's best hackers and PSYOP specialists worked tirelessly to craft a virus, a mimetic weapon designed to infect the Krell's hive mind and turn them against each other. They pored over the data from the captured Krell, analyzing every bit of information. It was a race against time, trying to find a chink in the Krell's armor before they wiped us out. His hands clenched into fists as he remembered the tension of those days. It was our last hope, a desperate gamble. We loaded the virus into every transmitter and beacon we could get our hands on. Then we broadcast it across the galaxy, targeting every Krell ship and outpost we could find. Kevin's voice trailed off, his eyes unfocused as he relived the moment. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Horace leaned forward, his breath held in anticipation, waiting to hear what happened next. Kevin's shoulders sagged as his mind drifted back to those final fateful days. The virus had spread like wildfire through the Krell's hive mind, turning their once formidable unity into a maelstrom of chaos and destruction. It was like watching a supernova, Kevin said, his voice heavy with the weight of memory. The Krell ships started firing on each other, tearing themselves apart. Their ground forces turned their weapons on their own kind, painting the streets of 100 worlds with their blood. He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. We thought we'd won, that we'd finally found a way to beat them, but we didn't realize the true cost of our victory. Kevin's eyes grew distant, seeing not the dingy bar but the horrors of a galaxy engulfed in the Krell's death throes. Their weapons, the ones they'd used to conquer and subjugate, were now unleashed in a final desperate spasm of violence. Entire planets burned, civilizations wiped out in an instant as the Krell's doomsday devices activated. His voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible over the hum of the station's machinery. Billions died, innocents caught in the crossfire of our war, and when the dust settled, when the last Krell ship had been reduced to atoms, there was only silence. Kevin drained the last of his drink, the glass slamming down on the table with a sense of finality. We'd won, but at what cost? Earth was in ruins, our cities smashed, our people broken, and the other races, the ones we'd fought to save, they looked at us with fear in their eyes. He met Horace's gaze, a bitter smile twisting his lips. We were the monsters now, the ones who'd destroyed an entire species, who'd sacrificed billions for our own survival, and that's a reputation that'll haunt us for generations. Kevin pushed himself to his feet, his chair scraping against the floor. So when you hear stories of human bravery, of our strength and courage, remember the truth. We're not heroes. We're just the ones who were willing to do whatever it took to survive, no matter the cost. With that, Kevin turned and walked away, leaving Horace to sit in silence, the weight of the human's words settling like a lead weight in his chest. The price of survival in a hostile universe was high, and the scars it left ran deep. Kevin's boots echoed off the metal floor as he exited the dimly lit bar. Suddenly, a dozen armed Pandronians emerged from the shadows, pulse rifles aimed squarely at his chest. Their leader, a battle-hardened warrior with a jagged scar running down his face, stepped forward. "You're coming with us, human," he snarled, his voice dripping with contempt. "You have a lot to answer for." Kevin stood still, hands raised in resignation. He knew there was no escape, no point in resisting. The Pandronians roughly grabbed him, shoving him forward at gunpoint. They marched him through winding corridors, descending deep into the bowels of the station. After what seemed like an eternity, they reached a heavily guarded door. It hissed open, revealing a large circular room. In the center sat a council of Pandronian elders, their ancient faces etched with grim determination. "Sergeant Kevin Cooper," the central elder intoned, his voice booming in the chamber. "You stand accused of war crimes against the Krell and the galaxy at large, How do you plead?" Kevin met the elder's gaze unflinchingly. "I did what I had to do to save my species, we all did, and if I had to do it again, I would." His words hung in the air, a defiant admission of guilt. The elders conferred among themselves, their whispers harsh and heated. The debate raged for what felt like hours, until finally they turned back to Kevin. "Sergeant Cooper, in light of your confession and the overwhelming evidence against you, this council finds you guilty of genocide and crimes against sentience. Your punishment is death, to be carried out immediately." Kevin nodded, his face a mask of stoic acceptance. He was led to a small barren room where a single Pandronian soldier waited, pulse rifle in hand. As the soldier took aim, Kevin's mind drifted to his fallen comrades, their sacrifices, the terrible price they'd paid for humanity's survival. A bitter smile twisted his lips. "To the victors go the spoils," he whispered, "and to the survivors go the guilt." The rifle blast echoed through the room, a final punctuation to Kevin's life. His body crumpled to the ground, a testament to the lengths one species would go to ensure its survival in an unforgiving universe. In the wake of Kevin's execution, tension rippled across the galaxy. Humans found themselves isolated and reviled, mistrusted by the very species they'd saved. The wounds of war ran deep, the scars of human desperation destined to linger for generations. A haunting reminder of the price of survival in a hostile universe. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.